So the reality is that the Bible can be hard to grasp. Okay? No joke. You flip open to a lot of the Old Testament and you're like, what? For real? This has to do with God? Alright, well, can I just fast forward? Find something that I like, find something that makes sense, some of these names that I can pronounce. I get what you're saying.
Oh, yeah.
I do that too. Sometimes I go, in my head when I pass over. I just don't know what it is. It's really hard to grasp, but the reality is that God makes it clear what we truly need to know and understand. And as we grow closer to Him and as we read it more, we understand it. Things of God are a... What do you think?
Oh, wait, there's no
necessity.
Close. This is something different. This is more mysterious.
A mystery.
A mystery! Wow! Yes. Here are two reasons why it's a mystery. Number one, it's what we talked about in the very first class, is that things of God are far beyond our comprehension as human beings, let's be honest. Okay? It even says the word, His thoughts and ways are far greater than ours. We cannot comprehend God fully because God is beyond this universe. Okay, so like we think tangibly, oh my goodness, there is a big fish, it's a fish. Beyond us. Number two, it goes back to the idea that God is sovereign. Alright, so He controls the revelation. And so even if you're a believer, there are times when you read that word and God is not going to reveal something to you. Why do you think that is? A big sovereign God. What is our main purpose? Glorify Him. Yeah. And to enjoy Him forever. And so maybe it's not time. Timing is a major thing with God. And so, where I am in life, and there are plenty of times when there's something I just want and something I want to do, and God will say no. And He will say, you will wait for it. And I will have to wait and wait. And yeah, I whine and cry like a little baby sometimes. Because that's how we are in life. Like, we're human. Our flesh is telling us, oh, I want it now, and I want this. And God is saying, no, no, no. But God isn't saying no because He's this mean daddy saying, no, you can't have that, I'm just sorry, it's just not good. He's saying, I have something so much greater for you if you would just wait. He says, I have a bigger, greater purpose that will happen if you would just wait. And what happens when we don't wait? It's true. Trouble happens.
Yeah.
Pay attention. But our life gets a whole lot harder. Things of God are spiritually discerned. The proper understanding of Scripture, when you're sitting there reading it, it's going to be a spiritual thing. It's not going to be an intellectual thing. Lastly, sometimes we do misunderstand the Scripture. We are human. What does that mean? We're not perfect. Exactly. We still make mistakes. We still sin. And so there are times we're going to read it and we're going to be like, okay, it says, like, say we, okay, listen up. Say we read in like 1 John where it says, do not love the world or anything in it. Okay, that's pretty clear, isn't it? So maybe I walk outside and go, I really love that car. I really, really love that car. That car is tremendous. What am I doing? I'm loving the world. Is the car bad? Not in and of itself, but suddenly I'm like, I just really need that car because I really love that car. You know what I mean? It's something I want more than I want God. It's basically what it is. So it becomes an idol. Something, so that's me breaking the rules. Right there. And again, going back, for instance, sometimes we'll have hardened hearts or we'll have veiled eyes. Sometimes we need to wait for further events or understanding in order for it to make sense. And sadly, sometimes it's because we just choose to exchange the truth for lies. Truth for lies. Necessity of Scripture. If you didn't catch anything else, here's what you need to know. You need it. It's critically important. The Bible must be read or spoken. And you can jot down Romans 10:17 and check it out later. But it says basically we do not know the things of God unless we hear them. And so it must be read or it must be spoken. Like through the Old Testament times, they used to tell the stories verbally. So it's a very common thing. That's why we have preachers, because they preach the word to us. That's why we read Scripture. That's why we speak Scripture. All those sorts of things. So we need to hear it in some form. Our spiritual lives are maintained by daily nourishment from the Word. Okay, so that's how we do our upkeep. That's how we stay close to God. That's how we grow closer to Him. Is that we check out the Word and we are obedient to it. So it's not just, reading. I think in the Bible it also talks about how it's like a person who looks in a mirror and walks away and forgets what they look like. Is if you read the Word and you walk away and you don't do anything it says. Okay? So we want to be applying it to our lives. It is only in the Bible that we will find clear and definite statements about God's will. So yeah, God might not directly, if you open the Word to say, I don't know, Ezra, and say, well, am I going to my friend's house tonight? Well, no, it's not going to say that. But if you open your word and you're like, okay, the reason I'm questioning whether to go to my friend's house is it going to be a good thing for me in the end or a bad thing for you in the end, then you can look at plenty of scripture that's going to tell you, is it going to glorify God or is it not? Lastly, the sufficiency of scripture. Oh, God has given us instructions that equip us for every good work that He wants us to do. There is no reason why we should ever add to or subtract from Scripture. What it says is just fine. We don't need to add our little things. We don't need to subtract from it. We don't need to cut out the pages and decide which words we like. We don't need to tell other people what they need to obey and what we don't need to obey, okay? So this one in, and I make a little disclaimer with it. I love disclaimers. Nothing is sin that is not forbidden by Scripture, either explicitly or by implication. What that means is that a lot of Christians out there that will look at you and they will almost put a big burden on you and say, you have to do this, you have to do that, that's not okay, this is not okay, blah, 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 blah. Okay, the Bible stands just fine in telling us what's okay and what's not. Conviction from the Spirit tells us what's okay and what's not. Other people, speaking for God, can tell us what's okay and what's not, but ultimately the Word has first priority. Does that make sense? And so we have to be careful, too, that we don't look at our friend and say, oh my goodness, your fingernails are purple, you're sinning. You know what I mean? Like, we have to be, and I know that sounds ridiculous, but people say all sorts of crazy things. There are churches out there that you're not allowed dancing. Dancing is a sin. Well, I mean, personally, that's fine if that's their conviction. But they can't look at me and say, I'm sorry, you dance, you sin, because they're convicting me when that's not their job. Okay, it's not their job to judge me. The Bible does that.